Hello everyone and welcome back to the Check the Manual channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at a magazine, this being Nintendo Power issue 199. This is from January 2006. We're going to be taking a look at a few articles, highlights from the magazines, advertisements, reviews, stuff like that, and kind of a snapshot of what was happening in 2006. Now there's a few reasons I want to take a look at this issue in particular. Number one being the Wi-Fi connection, as you saw on the cover. The original Nintendo Wi-Fi connection service got shut down in May of 2014, so we're coming up on the 11-year anniversary for that. But additionally, this time period for Nintendo in 2006 was a transitional time. The DS had just come out 2 years earlier, but they're still also actively supporting the GameCube and Game Boy Advance. In my head, the DS was always separate from the Game Boy and the GameCube, but it's neat to see that they were in fact released all at the same time, kind of similar to the 3DS and the Switch. Now, this next section of the magazine, known as the Pulse, was where the Nintendo Power writers and editors would respond to mail-in letters, but mostly online comments at this point. This wasn't something that I usually read when I was a kid, but I like reading them now. In particular, sections like this one, where a reader writes in that they want to understand what happens in the minds of the ESRB members when they're rating games. Harvest Moon doesn't have any alcohol. Nintendo Power gives kind of a corporate response, but then also in the picture says, 5 minutes later, Jack drove his tractor into the lake. I also like this RPG fan that asks two things. He says, will there ever be a sequel to Skies of Arcadia? And for the love of all that is good, where is our remake of Final Fantasy VI? It has been 10 long years! Where is it? Well, I guess with the Pixel remaster, he kind of got his wish, but the Skies of Arcadia thing I thought was funny. I think Sega's more likely to put Skies of Arcadia into a Yakuza game at this point than actually re-release it. Nowadays, I just love seeing that reader, writer, / editor dynamic in these Nintendo Power issues, but another thing I love seeing are these dated advertisements. The geek billionaire lifestyle begins with Magic the Gathering. That guy is so cool. And the hot tub in the air, are you kidding me? Up next, we're taking a look at some sales numbers and reader polls in terms of what the gamers want and what's selling. I want to point out the DS sales, with Nintendogs filling in the first 3 slots. I forgot how popular Nintendogs was, but they actually sold almost 24 million units all in all once the DS was discontinued, which is kind of crazy. Up next in the news section, we're taking a look at some recently announced titles from Japan, some of which would come out in America, like New Super Mario Bros., the Starfy game, Mario Hoops 3-on-3, but also some unreleased games that just never came out here in the States, like the Tingle RPG and Detect Hacker. That's a point-and-click RPG. It goes by Project Hacker Kakusei in Japan, but never came out over here in the States. In the bottom left, we're also highlighting a little game called Brain Age, known in Japan as Dr. Kawashima's Brain Training. And then up next, we have some news on the Resident Evil Deadly Silence that remake release for Nintendo DS, but also that Electroplankton will be available only in the Nintendo World Store in New York City or online. I didn't realize that never really got a full retail release. And aside from the Shrek Super Slam ad, before we get into some game previews, we get kind of an idea on the run, so to speak, that Nintendo has been on in the months leading up. With Mario Kart DS releasing, Animal Crossing, Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, they've been on a pretty hot streak coming into 2006. Now, taking a look at some game previews, you'll also see that Nintendo Power included a Nintendo Wi-Fi connection instruction booklet, getting it set up on your DS so you could play your games worldwide. I guess, it's something that we take for granted nowadays, but setting up Wi-Fi connections on your devices, phones, gaming devices, stuff like that is something that's kind of commonplace, but wasn't really that common in 2006. Aside from the Wi-Fi connection booklet, you'll also see some previews for some pretty exciting upcoming games, not necessarily Sonic Riders, but things like Chibi Robo, Super Princess Peach, which, a good platformer for the DS. You'll also see stuff in here for Brain Age, a lot of big games coming up on the horizon, more specifically for the DS as the GameCube and Game Boy Advance are kind of winding down. Aside from game previews, Nintendo Power is also previewing the upcoming Nintendo console release. The Wii, at this time known as the Nintendo Revolution, had not yet fully been announced, so we get a look at a prototype controller here. Looks like it has the Wii Motion Plus attached, but it also has the 1 and 2 buttons, say A and B, which I thought was kind of interesting to see that early controller. Here we get into kind of the cover article highlighting the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, as some Nintendo Power employees were in the beta test for the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, highlighting 3 games that take advantage of it, being Mario Kart DS, Animal Crossing Wild World, and Tony Hawk's American Skateland. Now, as beta testers, but also kind of Nintendo staff, Nintendo Power is really advertising the Wi-Fi connection service, sharing personal anecdotes, and answering some questions on the service itself. One in particular that I want to highlight is Andy's experience here. The article writer Andy explains that he saw a coffee shop in Seattle that advertised a free public Wi-Fi hotspot. After ordering his hazelnut latte, he fired up his DS and received an error message almost immediately when trying to connect. That's because he didn't have the Wi-Fi password or the WEP encryption, so he asked the barista who gave it to him, and then went on how easy the experience was in terms of setting it up and playing the games. Once he set up on the coffee shop Wi-Fi, you could see him enjoying Animal Crossing, just minding his own business. He's not doing anything bad. And reading that kind of makes me realize, that we take for granted connecting to Wi-Fi in our everyday lives on our everyday devices, but it wasn't so common back in 2006. You might not have even had a Wi-Fi router. So that's why Nintendo actually partnered with over 6,000 McDonald's locations across the US. So if you don't have a Wi-Fi router, you could go to your local McDonald's to try it out. They were really pushing this at the time, and I think it worked. I had a lot of fun on Nintendo Wi-Fi when it was back up. And what good would a Wi-Fi connection be without any games to play? So let's take a look at Animal Crossing Wild World, one of the 3 launch games that had Wi-Fi compatibility. You'll see not only do you get details on the game itself, but again, Nintendo Power packed a lot of goodies into this issue, including a postcard, but also a full calendar. Stay tuned till the very end to see the full 2006 Animal Crossing calendar. Now, Animal Crossing Wild World was my first Animal Crossing game, so I have some pretty fond memories of it. But they definitely wanted you to have friends to play with. At the time, New Leaf had already come out, and I didn't have a 3DS yet. But you need to play multiplayer with someone in order to unlock the last stage of Tom Nook's shop, which I thought was kind of a dumb requirement. I also like this snapshot of NintendoWiFi.com, where you can learn more information about how to connect your devices, some upcoming games, stuff like that. Kind of fun. But yeah, if you've never played Animal Crossing Wild World or one of these older Animal Crossing games, like if you started in New Horizons, I would definitely recommend going back. Talking to villagers in these games never gets old for me. They're very witty and very funny. Up next, we're taking a look at Mario Kart DS. Now, to this point, I don't know if the DS really had a killer app, per se. It had Nintendogs, it had Mario 64 DS, but I don't know if I really consider those like killer apps for the DS. I would say this is like the first must-have game for the DS. If you didn't already have one, you were buying it for Mario Kart DS. We get to take a look at some tracks from the game, highlights of specific cups, but also things like the battle mode, which I had a ton of fun with my friends with the DS download play for my friends that didn't have the game, just playing battle mode and Shine Runners, going through the single player campaign. A lot of fun to still be had with Mario Kart DS. I also like this ad in particular for Game Crazy. We didn't have a Game Crazy around us, we just mainly went to GameStop, but this guy's right. You shouldn't sell your bodily fluids just for some video games at the end of the day. And then the last game to take advantage of the Wi-Fi connection at kind of the birth of the service was Tony Hawk's American Wasteland on DS. I know this came out on other systems as well, and I never really played this version of the game in particular, but just kind of a simple overview on some game modes, courses, stuff like that. Let me know if you ever played this version, Tony Hawk's American Skateland on DS, if it's any good or not. Maybe I'll check it out someday. And then to tie the whole Wi-Fi kind of segment together, you have a nice little Players Poll sweepstakes where you could enter to potentially win some games in the DS console from Nintendo Power to test out that new Wi-Fi service, baby. Now, earlier in Nintendo Power's lifespan, in my opinion, they were more known for giving guides and cheats and information on how to beat certain games. They don't really do that, a ton in these later issues, but here you'll see they still give some battle information for Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. The hints don't stop there, with some coverage on Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, covering all of the bosses that you'll see within the first several hours of gameplay. And I guess this is kind of a controversial opinion, but I think I actually prefer Partners in Time over any of the other Mario and Luigi games. I like playing as Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, the bosses and the music and the art style. I like the Shroobs as enemies. I just think I enjoyed my time with Partners in Time a little bit more than Bowser's Inside Story and some of those other games. Shouts out to Elf Bowling 1 and 2 as well. I mean, yeah, I've never played it, but shouts goes out to Elf Bowling 1 and 2. Now kind of wrapping up our look through of this issue of Nintendo Power, we're going to be taking a look at some game reviews, just kind of spotlighting some scores and some games that were coming out around this time. And again, this is just kind of a high-level overview of this particular issue of Nintendo Power, so I'm not going to be reading any particular reviews. If any of these games here do interest you and you want to read the full reviews, I would recommend either just pausing the video or seeking out this issue of Nintendo Power online, or getting the magazine for yourself. There's still quite a bit of information that I didn't cover intentionally, so that there's still something for you to read if you do decide to seek out this issue. One thing I can't gloss over, however, is the fact they gave Shadow the Hedgehog an 8.0 out of 10. Now, I usually trust Nintendo Power's opinions when it comes to games. They gave me a lot of good recommendations as I was growing up. Stuff like Chrono Trigger, Elite Beat Agents, stuff like that, but don't necessarily know if I could agree with Shadow the Hedgehog as an 8.0 game. That Nintendo Power throws in for us is the 2006 Animal Crossing calendar. Like I said earlier, if you want to see this calendar in full, just wait till the end of the video and we'll take a look at it there. And that kind of ends our coverage for today. This has been issue 199, January 2006 of Nintendo Power. If you made it this long in the video, I appreciate you sticking around. And if you haven't read Nintendo Power, I would recommend reading some issues, not just this issue in particular, but Nintendo Power was a great magazine. So if you have any interest in Nintendo content from years prior, definitely take a look.